This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good Erev Shabbos, Rabbi Sai. As we prepare for Parshas Naso, we're going to talk about a topic, and you may ask, why am I talking about this topic? It's not relevant to me. I don't wear a Sheitel, and I don't wear a skirt. Well, that's the Shiloh. Why am I talking to the men? Well, I'll tell you, I recently discussed with Rabbi Reisman Shlita about whether it's appropriate for a Rav to speak to women about Tzniyus. Or maybe it's not, maybe it should be done better by a woman, maybe it's not Tzniyus for a man to speak to a woman about Tzniyus. And he felt possibly that a young Rav should not speak to Nashim about these inyanim. And actually he told me that one of the Chasheva Rabbanim in Brooklyn disagreed, especially to a Rav who people are going to listen to. They have to speak about it. And many years ago he took the Shaila to Reb Shimon Schwab, and he concurred that it's possibly not modest for a young Rav to speak to women about Tzniyus. So that's why I'm not talking to them, I'm talking to you. But nobody said that you can't do it on a camera, right? On the camera, then they're not in the room, and also men need to know these halachas as well to be able to guide in the proper way. Also, by the way, Rabbi Avad Yosef was not a fan of men giving shiurim, especially young rabbanim giving shiurim to women, just a man to a group of women on a regular basis. However, let us begin with this topic. Parshas, the Parsha of the Sotah. We know the process of the Sotah is a demeaning process. We basically defile her, we rip off the covering of her hair, and we rip her clothing, and she's in a very compromised situation. But as part of the process, the pasuk says, "V'hemer hakoines ha'isha l'fnei Hashem." We stand here before God. Ufara es roish ha'isha. We uncover her head. To uncover her head, who said she was wearing a head covering? Says Rashi, "Soiser es klias sa'ara." We untie the braids of her hair, kedei levazoisa, to embarrass her. Mikan levenois Yisrael. From here we see that for a Jewish woman, shegiloi haroish genai lahen, that their head being uncovered is disparaging.
So if you don't wash it, what would you say?
Rashi says it means to uncover her head. So now the shaila is, we know that a woman, a married woman, has to have her hair covered. Is it Dairaisa? Is it Drabanan? Is it Minhag? Is it only something people in Williamsburg do? Where does it lie? Did Moshe Rabbeinu come down from Har Sinai and Hashem told him that a married woman has to cover her hair? Where does this halacha lie? It is absolutely Dairaisa. Without any machlokes, without any hesitation, it's a din Dairaisa. It's biblical. The Mishnah says in Ksubos, "Ve'elu yotzei shalai b'ksuba." These women, you divorce them, and you don't have to pay them the ksuba. Hoiveras al das Moshe, a woman who violates the laws of Moses, the Yehudis, and the laws of the Jewish people. Says the Mishnah, Ve'eza hi das Moshe. What is the law of Moshe? Machilasoi she'ena ma'usar. If she feeds you something that's tevel, u'misham mashtoi nida, she doesn't go to the mikvah. V'loi koitzel achalav, she doesn't separate challah. Or if she's noideres ve'ena mekayemes. In other words, a woman violates an isur dairaisa, all bets are off. You could terminate the marriage, you don't have to pay her ksuba. Ve'ezeu das Yehudis. What does it mean, a woman who violates Jewish practice? Yoitza v'roisha prua, if she doesn't cover her hair. Hey, wait a second. Here the Mishnah seems to imply that covering hair is not biblical, it's only Jewish practice, it's only minhag. So that's why the Gemara says on this, Roisha parua dairaisahi. What are you talking about? Why are you categorizing not covering your hair as a minhag? It's dairaisa. Tichsiv uparas roisha isha v'tan mei rishmal as hara l'mnei yisrael roish dairaisa. And the Gemara says, yeah, we're talking about in a place where there are no men. So in a place with no men, she wouldn't have to cover her hair midairaisa, but minhag Yehudis is, Jewish custom is still to do it. Bottom line is, it's a biblical rule Same way you got to eat kosher and go to the mikveh, a married woman must cover her hair. Yeah, but this one didn't do it. Okay, not every Jew keeps the whole Torah. What can I tell you? But I know a rabbi, his wife did. Okay, no problem. I'm just here to tell you the truth. That's all I could do. Okay, so now the shaila is. So there are various ways for a woman to cover her hair. She could cover it with a cloth and whatever she wants to. I remember my son, I think in first grade, so they were making snowflakes. So the teacher brought in these little doilies, you know these little doilies, and they cut out in the. So the teacher asked, "Does anybody know what these are?" So my son raised his hand. Yeah, I know what these are. This is what the ladies in my shul on Yom Kippur wear on their heads. And that's not what the answer the teacher was looking for. But now the question is, what is that? Is that something? Is that nothing? Doesn't work. It's not covering your hair. The entire head must be covered. All the hair. Every last one. So now we're going to see. The Mishnah Berurah says like this. That Mishnah Berurah in Siman Ayin Hey Siv Katan Yud says that even if it's the derech of that place, only to cover it in the marketplace and not in the house and in the courtyard, it's still an erva, and you can't daven or learn in the presence of it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, what if in that location nobody covers their hair? Says the Mishnah Berurah, well, what if in that location nobody wears clothing? It's not an erva. So too, the hair is an erva. Now we know there is a kula of the Aruch HaShulchan. There's a well-known kula of the Aruch HaShulchan that even though it's not right if a woman doesn't cover her hair, but if people don't, you could still daven opposite it because people are used to it. That doesn't mean you're allowed to not cover her hair. It just means that Torah and Tefillah will not be asur. But listen to what he says. V'gam kol benois Yisrael machzikos b'das Moshe nesharis mizem yimosav v'sin me'olam v'yarata b'chlal ervahi. The only exception is a girl who's not married doesn't have to cover her hair. What about hair? A woman wears a tichel or a woman wears a sheitel, but you have hair on the temple that sticks out. Is that an erva? Now listen very carefully. Everybody knows there's a halacha tefach be'isha erva, a tefach. Now how much is a tefach? Tefach is a couple of centimeters, 6 centimeters, 8 centimeters. So you say, oh, tefach b'isha erva. Could the sleeve be a tefach above the elbow? No. Of the elbow and the knee, even a millimeter cannot be uncovered. But only tefach b'isha erva. No, tefach b'isha erva is not a part of the body that's supposed to be covered. We're going to see. Yeah, but I know somebody. So then tell them very nicely that to go to the tailor, right? Maybe the tailor from the other side of Sambadia and this side of Sambadia, whatever tailor you want to find. But now when it comes to hair, though, you do have a tefach. But we're going to see how that applies. Okay? I could go and say, the Mishnah Berurah has a kula that the hair that sticks out of the temples, you can't. The Mishnah Berurah says you can't require the woman to cover mamish every single. Then she's going to be covering her face. So whatever hair sticks out of the temples, according to the Mishnah Berurah, not everybody agrees. The Chavetz Chaim is mekel that it's okay, but it's totally in the minhag hamakomis. In other words, if you live in Williamsburg, where everybody's makbid, that you can't even let the hair of the temples come out, then the hair of the temples is also a problem. But in most communities, whatever it is, Flatbush, Borough Park, I don't know about Borough Park, Queens, where women are not necessarily, the minhag is to cover the hair of the temples, there is leeway. I'm going to tell you how much leeway. Now people take advantage of this. Or, says the Mishnah Berurah, Shezet toli b'minhag hamakomish. Minhag b'nois Yisrael b'zeh hamakom lizar shleilatzis afilu ma'amin amachutz l'kishra memela b'char ervahi v'asik was connected. The Mishnah Berurah says they're not happy with their share. They're sending the dogs out against it. But if the minhag is not even to allow a minimal amount of hair, then that a minimal amount of hair is an erva. You can't daven opposite it. Otherwise, it's mutter. It's a kula, the Mishnah Berurah, that the hair that sticks out of the temples is mutter. Now, how much? Now, this is where Rav Moshe comes in. Rav Moshe explains that you have two fingers. Two fingers. That means two fingers starting from here around. You have two fingers, this amount, two fingers, from the length of the face. But what about those sheitels nowadays? Some women, they take out part of their hair and they put it over the sheitel. Baruch Hashem, they keep kosher, and they keep taras hamishpacha, and they send their kids to yeshiva. And Mirz Hashem, one day they'll also cover their hair. But that's not permitted. You can't take some of the hair and stick it out of the sheitel. The heter is two fingers in the front.
But the sheitel looks better than the hair.
I'm not talking about the hashkafa, about whether...
How do you know which is which hair?
It doesn't matter. It's exer sakosov. The Torah says that the married woman can't cover hair. It's a problem. Look, Rav Avadia Yosef says a woman is not allowed to wear a sheitel. Rav Avadia Yosef said sheitels are not permitted. In his school system, if the woman was wearing a sheitel, he would remove them from the school. But the minhag Ashkenaz, we found Rav Moshe allowed sheitels. Now, I don't think Rav Moshe was talking about some of the sheitels that they're selling today, but that's more of a hashkafic issue of it. It draws more attention than the regular hair, right? But bottom line, let's see Rav Moshe. He says,
To begin with, the covering hair is not because of beauty, is it?
No, it's because of an erva. But lemaisa, if it...
No, it says not.
It's an erva. The reason why it's an erva is because it causes hirhurim. So now, if the sheitels now realistically are more attractive than without it, then it's like it's.
They're human hair, so human hair. But sometimes we're without.
Lemaisa, it's mutter. Lemaisa, it's permitted. I'm saying meikar din, it's mutter. Now to have these long, stylish sheitels which draw. We'll leave it enough said. Okay, so. Rav Moshe says like this. Look at number 5. Rav Moshe writes in two places. Nevan Ezer Siman Nun Ches and Nevan Ezer Siman Kuf Yadal. He says that even though the Chsam Sofer is very makbid, the Chsam Sofer holds not even one hair could stick out, and there's no wiggle room or leeway at all. He says, Aval Pashot on the 5th line, She'elu haroitzis lahakol b'shnei hadinim. If a woman wants to be mekel, Ein lach shivan la'over sadas Yehudas chas v'sham, she's not an avarian. If a woman wants to have leeway of 2 fingers, then even a Talmud Chacham could marry her, no problem, as long as she's a Yirei Shemayim. But here is the shir: Avalhu rak erech beis etzbois begoiva, 2 etzbois in height, shehapanim hu erech beis tfachim, like this. The face is about 2 tfachim long. The face is about 2 tfachim long. And total, what could be uncovered is less than a tefach. In other words, if the face is 2 tefachim long and a tefach is 4 etzbois, so then if you have 2 fingers along 2 tefachim, basically it's 2 tefachim times a half a tefach, which is 1 square tefach, which is still mutter. That's Rav Moshe's kula. Rav Moshe never said you could pull the tichel back to here. You do that, your husband's never yotzei kiddush. How can you make kiddush? Your hair's not covered. You can't say kiddush. Chavetz Chaim writes, a person thinks, after 120 years, at least I'm going to get credit for learning and brachos. Yeah, but not if there's a woman standing in front of you with her hair uncovered. You don't even get credit for that.
Even your wife, you're talking about?
Even your wife. Now, the Aruch HaShulchan has a kula of Zman Hazeh that you don't. It's not an isser to learn or to daven, but it's not a heter for the hair to be uncovered. Okay. The Rav Moshe writes also in Even Ezer Sim Kuf Yadalid that if a woman's hair is covered and she leaves a little bit uncovered, he says like this, the same kula, that you have about 2 fingers, which is a chatzi tefach along the length of the face. Okay, Rabbi Say? So that is, now many disagree with Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe's kula is very much contested. But Rav Moshe is Rav Moshe. So if you want to know up to how much you could go, this is the kula Rav Moshe, but it's a kula. Fine. Now let's talk about another thing. People love to bring girls to shul. Why? I have no idea. People love to bring little girls to shul. Now, at what age does a girl have to follow the laws of Tzniyus? Now, what are the laws of Tzniyus? Laws of Tzniyus are that the entire elbow needs to be covered, entire knee needs to be covered. Yeah, but that means for an adult woman, she cannot have even a millimeter of her elbow or knee uncovered. If you make Kiddush and the elbow is uncovered, it's a question whether you're Yotze Kiddush.
Where do we get the knee and the elbow from?
It's in Shulchan Aruch. It's in Even Hazar. What?
How it has to be for you to make it.
Could you have answered it?
Good answer, yes. How it won't have to be with the
It's in Siman Chaf Aleph in Even Hazar.
No.
Straight answer.
It's in
How
Shulchan
it
Aruch.
won't have to be Daled Amos, they like.
No, as long as she could be 100 miles away. If you could see her, you can't make Kiddush, yeah.
If she's sitting down and she's under
So
the
it's-
table.
I'm sorry to
If
say.
if she put her under the table, yeah, you could have.
I'm sorry to say, it's worse than Sotah. You don't need Daled Amos.
No.
Under the table is good.
Yeah.
But if you remove the table, you can see it. As long as it's...
Don't remove the table.
No. The concept is that if...
I believe it's okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's not,
You can't see it.
I always thought that it's,
If you turn
it's
your
far
back,
away
it's
that you're
behind
not
your back.
able to see. But this is close, but it's just something blocking it.
The clothing is also something blocking it. As far as I think.
Make a broken not in front of you, just behind you. It's okay?
It's okay. Okay, now at what age do you have to be makbid that a girl covers her knees and elbows? There's a big machlokes about this. It's a big machlokes. The Mishnah Berurah is very makbid. The Mishnah Berurah says 3 years old. Now you should know, we're going to get to this. When it comes to Hilchas Yichud, everybody agrees 3 years old, you can't be miyached with a girl. Everybody agrees. Nobody argues. There's no kula. A 3-year-old girl, there's Isser Yichud. But now we're talking about Hilchas Tzniyus. The opinion of the Bir Halacha is Ayin b'Sefer Shulchan Shlomo, look at number 7, the Bir Halacha, 7 hey, Shekasav the Shir Zeh Shaykh Afilu V'Ktana Mibas Gimelech. A girl 3 and on, Shehi Ruya Labiyah. Once a girl is 3, she's Ruya for relations. And now, what if it's my own daughter? There's a kula. Your own daughter, up to age 11. Own daughter, it's not an erva up to age 11.
What about granddaughter?
A chayr granddaughter also.
So after 11, you can't be in the same house with her?
No, there's no Isser Yichud. Now I'm not talking about Yichud. I'm talking about Tzniyus. That a daughter or granddaughter up to age 11 doesn't have to cover the knees and elbows. For you, for herself, there's a different, we'll see. But again, according to the Mishnah Berurah, the laws of Tzniyus apply from age 3. Now that's a very chamor dekashita. That means according to the Mishnah Berurah, you have a little girl, you cannot bring her into shul if her knees and elbows are not covered. Then why? Because nobody can daven. Nobody can daven. That's the opinion of the Chavetz Chaim. Chazon Ish argues. Chazon Ish says that it's all a matter of what causes hirhurim, what causes improper thoughts. A little girl doesn't excite people. Not until she's more mature and she starts to look like a woman, only then does she have to follow the laws of Tzniyus. Now, what age is that? It's very unclear.
9, 10.
Some say 9, most say 6 or 7. Now, 6 or 7, anyway you have to start to train her because you have a mitzvah of chinuch. 6-year-old girl, 7-year-old girl, you got to be mechanech them in the halachas of Shulchan Aruch. But in terms of bring her to shul with her knees and elbows not covered, Rabbi Binyamin Zilber in the Shas Chuvas Oz Nidbaru says Chazon Ish means 6 or 7. Others say a little bit older. I think Rabbi Vadia Yosef is a little bit more lenient. Chazon Ish argues on the Bir Halacha. That's the kula. Usually, no. The Chavetz Chaim is never machmer. Chazon Ish is never machmer. They just say what they think. Usually it's a chumrah, but there's no machmirim. Everybody's just saying the MS. Yeah. And this halacha Chazon Ish is mekel. Look at number 8. Chazon Ish says in Archaim Sim Tezayin, Kasav Mishnah Berurah Siman Ayin Hey V'Ralach D'Rat Tefach. The Tefach V'Ishu Mibas Gimel Shana V'Yom Echad. A tefach, being an erva on a woman, is from 3 and on. B'chein shoik, also her leg. Says the Chazon Ish, I argue. Based on what I said earlier, the cholhani eino erva beikarai. There's nothing that's really a inherent erva. El chachama asruah misham hira. The rabbis asserted it because people have improper thoughts. V'tir dahaya, and people get preoccupied. Nira dechosh she'ein daiton shemanei adam alei machas kanusan. If a man wouldn't really think about it because there's so little, mutter. V'harei das harabenu yaina she'ein issa beria ela behistaklos. Unahi das shar poiskim shesasmu bezel lahachmer beria she'ein avaliba sersur davera. Kamakim zu she'ein yitzar alei machmas kutnan hadas noite. Logic indicates shaloi asrum chachamim. How old? Ve'ein kan shir b'shanim. You can't give a definitive age. Ela lefi mitziusan v'katnusam gufan. It really depends on their development. Some girls mature quicker. Some girls already have a certain appearance at a younger age. Others, even at an older age. Different ages are given. Bottom line is, there's a big machlekes hapoiskim. The Bir Halacha, the Chavetz Chaim is machmer from 3 years old. The Chazon Ish is mekel until, I don't know, 6 or 7, maybe 9. Who do we paskin like? Chavetz Chaim or Chazon Ish? Now, normally I follow the Mishnah Berurah, I try to be consistent. So if you want to be consistent, then you got to be consistent. 3 years old. Rabbi Yashiv writes that if you have a tzibur, who the majority want to be mekel like the Chazon Ish, and a minority say, look, the Mishnah Berurah says 3 years old. The minority who want to follow the Mishnah Berurah cannot impose on the majority and say, look, you can't bring in your daughter. She's 4.5 years old. We want to be machmer like the Mishnah Berurah. In other words, what Rabbi Yashiv is saying is the Chazon Ish is a legitimate kula, and therefore the minority cannot impose the Mishnah Berurah on the majority. So in the Sefer Halichos Bas Yisrael, he says, it's the majority who want to follow the Chazon Ish. B'dvar hagil shel yolada, regarding the age of a girl, she'asr loymar kenegda dvarim shebekdusha, ein biyad hamiyat le'esnaged lahem. The miyad cannot impose on them. And in the footnote it quotes, this is the psak of Rabbi Yashiv in a tshuva that he wrote, that to the kehila in Azata, that if most of the tzibur want to follow the Chazon Ish, then they're allowed to. However, Rav Shlomo Zalman feels the Chazon Ish's kula is not legitimate. Imagine, Rav Shlomo Zalman says a 3-year-old girl, even though, like this, Rav Shlomo Zalman says like this: the Bir Halacha says that a 3-year-old girl already has to cover her knees and elbows. That's only regarding learning opposite it. But in terms of the isser of looking at it, we know a person's not allowed to look at an erva on a woman. There's no isser, according to what says Rav Shlomo Zalman, on a 3-year-old girl. But regarding dvarim shebekdusha, you need to be machmir like the Bir Halacha. That a 3-year-old girl comes into the shul, you can't daven. And now here's a very important halacha. And I wasn't sure about this. Sometimes, people bring their kids into shul, they shake the rabbi's hand, your little boy comes, and now a little girl comes. What do? At what age, Shlomo Zalman says, even though many people are not zahir, about, let's say you want to kiss your niece or nephew. 3 years old, you can't. 3 years old is a threshold. Rabbi Meinam Zahirim, ain't shom heter, he says. There's no heter.
Who's this on?
Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. Now, he doesn't say there's Isser Negiah on 3 years old, but Isser Chibuk V'Nishuk, yes. 1 second.
In that case,
So, bottom line is, what do? The Bir Halacha is makbid regarding everything at 3 years old. Rav Shlomo Zalman says no. Re'iyah at 3 years old is mutter. Chibuk v'nishuk is aser. Dvarim shebekdusha is aser. Chazon Ish is mekel. Chazon Ish says it depends on the age. So what do? So this is what I tell you. You don't have to listen to me, but it's a free country. I could say this is what I think. The Chazon Ish is a legitimate kula. Many places are mekel like the Chazon Ish. So you want to know, am I obligated, I have a 4-year-old daughter, am I obligated to make sure her knees and elbows are covered? I would say no. Chazon Ish is a legitimate kula. if she's so young and basically she's still a baby, no, Chazon Ish is a legitimate kula. The Mishnah Berurah, you're right. You want to be machmer? Tavei olav bracha. I would say that the Chazon Ish, especially Rabbi Yashiv acknowledges the fact that the Chazon Ish is a legitimate kula. However, I would tell you like this: if you want to bring your 3-year-old girl into shul and her knees or elbows are not covered, it's really not right. It's not right to do that. Why not? Because what about somebody who wants to be makbid like the Mishnah Berurah? What about somebody? Shlomo Zalman says Mishnah Berurah is the ikar halacha. Shlomo Zalman said not to be makel like the Chazon Ish. So you want to be makel with your daughter? No problem. You want to at home? You want to have a short dress, a short sleeve at home? You're entitled to do that. It's legitimate kula. Chazon Ish was a kosher Chazon Ish. You could be soymech on the Chazon Ish. You could be soymech on Rabbi Yashiv. But now you want to bring her into shul, and you want to, but what do you mean? Maybe the rabbi's makbid like the Mishnah Berurah. Maybe there are other people in the shul makbid like the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah is what Jews follow. People are so confused with Zman Hazeh of who to follow in halacha. Oh, Orcha Shulchan, the Kaf HaChaim, nobody knows. Everybody just knows where there's a kula, you take a kula. The Mishnah Berurah is the Chazon Ish said that every word in the Mishnah Berurah is like emanating from the Lishkas HaGazah. There's a Posek Achron, that's what we have as Zman Hazeh. So you have legitimate kula, no problem. A shul is a place that has to keep the highest standards. You don't keep Chalav Yisrael, maybe I shouldn't say that over here. No problem. But the shul has to have a higher standard. The shul standard has to be that everybody will feel comfortable based on their standards that the shul meets the highest standard. So you want to follow Chazon, no problem. In the shul, now will I be moicha in the shul? You can't bring your daughter there because the Mishnah Berurah says, I don't think so. Especially Rabbi Yashiv Paskin, that if a roiv want to follow Chazon Ish and a miyad want to impose on them the Mishnah Berurah, the miyad cannot impose upon them. But I will say it's probably not right to do that. So you have a little girl and she has a cute little dress and her elbows and knees are covered, no problem. She should wait outside and greet her father. Or let her come in after Musaf. But during davening, it's not really right to bring in, once a girl reaches 3 years old, if she's not according to the standard of the Mishnah Berurah.
What age is...
Swimming?
The question is, at what age, if the girl's properly dressed, can she sit with her father and not daven the other side of the chitzah?
I would think at the age of chinuch. The age of chinuch is 6 or 7.
Wow.
Somebody told me they asked Rabbi David Feinstein, at what age? Rabbi David said, they'll know on their own. They'll know on their own. In other words, when they start feeling uncomfortable being there, then they'll know on their own they shouldn't be there. I don't know if every father and daughter realize on their own, but l'chara at the age of chinuch means you train them in halacha. So when they reach the age of maturation, where they'll understand to be separate.
But halacha was bat mitzvah, right?
What?
Halacha was bat mitzvah.
Well, nobody's required to keep halacha before bar and bas mitzvah. The only thing is chinuch. Chinuch is from the age of 6 or 7. Okay, Rabbi say, but one important thing is this leeway of tefach only applies by hair. Does not apply by other. So it doesn't. Or just look at number 11. The Sefer Alichas Bas Yisrael. By the way, this is the first time I think I'm ever speaking about Tzniyus, bediktok. He says, "B'makoyim shetzarch lechasoisam choyvas hakisei al kol hamakoyim v'aser shei megula afilu shir muat v'loy ketayas umekilos la'atzon legaleach at tefach." Not like those who want to say, "Well, it's up to a tefach." The tefach is by the hair, not by other. Yeah.
Why is it if a girl is 20, 21, she's not married, why is not hair with her hair? Why can't I make a rubber? A straight girl comes to partake with guys, why can't I make a rubber? It's still the same time.
Then it's exer sakosov, that it's only concerned ever from the time she's married. It's a chayk. It's a chayk. In a certain way, it's a chayk.
What if you're doing outreach, let's say, you're trying to carve people who are not religious? A woman who, let's say, a couple who never was acquainted with
Yiddishkeit?
Yiddishkeit.
And now you want to give a shiur.
Well, you want to come, they want to invite them for Shabbos, let's say.
So, when it comes to hair, There is an Aruch HaShulchan that Ramosha Samichan that Bisman Hazeh, since so many women don't cover their hair, not that it's right, but that it would not aser dvarim shavakdusha. But other parts of the body are a problem. It's an issue. What do? When you make Kiddush, you have to look the other way. Okay, so they may not realize. But now you want to say Dvar Torah. Could you look them in the eye and say to them?
Dvar Torah, huh?
No. Can't.
Really?
Okay.
Bracha?
It's Dvar Torah. You know how to speak words of Torah. Rabbi, I wish everybody an absolutely wonderful Shabbos.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.